Welcome to another brand new edition of the Brodie and Richard Show, the show where no amount of Infinity Gauntlet snaps are going to be able to undo the amount of buttfuckery you're about to get into. My name is Kevin, and with me, as always, is my faithful
Time the fuck
partner.
out. Time the fuck out. Wait, the name of the show is the Brodie and Richard Show, and you're just like, my name's Kevin.
Oh, I did it again. I did it last week, too. Fuck!
Best show intro ever. We're going to keep it. Fuck it.
My name is Brodie. With me, as always, is my faithful friend, Richard. Richard, how are you doing?
How would you like to how would you like to fist somebody with the Infinity Gauntlet, like the Infinity Gauntlet fist? Just why is it?
I can't even fathom that.
Like, what happens if you find someone who's just open enough and you snap inside of them and they just disintegrate? Like, that's the greatest porn theory ever.
That's definitely going to be the Avengers Endgame porn parody.
I know I'm going to be vacationing soon, but I might be working on a porn movie now. So let's.
Hi-oh.
I'm gonna.
Oh man.
Oh, snapped from reality. Oh.
So today's episode, I know we talked about it back on the first one, but we had some stuff come up in between. We're going to be talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe with the release of Avengers Endgame descending upon us. I believe the first showings are going public tomorrow.
The best movie. Well, and by tomorrow, this show will already be kind of up when the movie is being premiered. So
there you go.
It'll
be within this week.
Yeah, it'll be this weekend.
So we figured what a time to go ahead and kind of deep dive discuss all things MCU.
Hey, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Shh. I'm pouring Hawaiian Punch. It's the orange flavor. You leave me alone.
Oh, God. Do you remember those when we were young, to kind of, not to get too random, but just go off on a quick tangent here, those little barrel juice boxes?
Yes.
They were like in barrels, and they had like the little tinfoil cap you had to peel back, and it almost always just tasted like ass.
Do you remember really the Kool-Aid Squeeze-Its?
Oh, yeah. I remember those.
I popped a lot of those on me and not meaning to.
I was always the guy that could never get the straw in the Capri Sun without spilling half the fucking juice box on me.
That takes some skills. Like, if you can find the Capri Sun hole, you're never going to have problems in your sex life.
I'm glad. I was going to make that joke, but you went there, and I'm very appreciative of it.
Speaking of Capri Sun holes, how about that Doctor Strange? I don't know where I was going with that. It just sounded good.
That is the strangest non sequitur ever. I see what I did there.
I do. I'm proud.
So where do you want to start? Like, there's like so many places to start. Like, how do you like?
I don't care.
Let me ask you. Yeah. What are your connections to the MCU? Like, this is a thing now that people have grown up with over the last decade. And this movie, the Endgame's coming out, is like the big capper on everything that's come out. And it's kind of bring to pass a lot of storylines that we've been growing up with. A lot of the actors, their contracts are over. And so this is going to be their last go-around. So what are your kind of overall impressions? What's your connection to this whole thing?
I loved it at first. I'm over it now. I'll probably re-love it again, and I'll be over it in about another 6 months. Like, I'm excited for this because I think the first MCU movie I actually watched in theater was Captain America.
The first Captain America?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think, that's number 4 in the movies? Like,
yeah, because I think before that was Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2. No, that's the 5th one. Because it goes Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, then Captain America, First Avenger, and then the Avengers.
Yeah, I was not that big. Like, okay, so the first one I watched in the theater was Captain America. I've seen the other ones, though. I wasn't a huge fan of Iron Man when the movie came out. Like, when the first one came out, I just wasn't a big fan of that character. I'm just like, it's Iron Man, whatever. It's a guy who has money and builds a suit. If I wanted to see that, I'd fucking watch Batman.
At the time, it was the MCU answer, or it was the Marvel answer to Batman.
Yeah, and that's what Tony Stark is. It is Marvel's answer to Batman. And after that, like the Hulk movies, just fucking are the worst.
That Ang Lee Hulk movie is the worst. But I challenge you to go back and watch, because I've been taking it upon myself to crash binge watch all 20 something MCU movies and prep for Endgame. And even the ones I don't like, I'm sitting down and
you have to. You have to.
Iron Man 2.
Poor Whiplash.
But I rewatched The Incredible Hulk, and I've always had a soft spot for it. Like, I've never not liked that movie, but I like it even more this time around. Like, it's really a fun movie. Like,
I don't think it really... Did it really give anything to the MCU?
Well, it did. It established, there's that, gave us General Thunderbolt Ross, who we know in Civil War comes up with the Sokovia Accords, which is responsible for the state of the Avengers as they are now. We get the Hulk, reintroduce the Hulk, even though it's not the same actor playing him anymore. Like, it doesn't, in terms of, like, advancing the overall plot of the Infinity Saga of the MCU, the only real important thing that happens is the mid-credit stinger where General Thunderbolt Ross is sitting in the bar and he's drinking, and then Tony Stark comes in and he's like, I hear you have a Hulk-sized problem, and he's like, you should be one to talk, and then Tony's like, well, we're putting a team together, cut the black. So, I mean, because it's only the second movie, and it wasn't even the MCU at this point. Like, Marvel Studios, I don't even think was Marvel Studios at this point. Like, this is the second movie after Iron Man. I mean, and Iron Man was a big success.
So they knew where they were going, but it just wasn't like to get there. But that movie,
it hadn't come together yet. So I don't think they were when they were making Incredible Hulk, they weren't planning all the way forward for Infinity War. So like, I don't think that there was a push yet to get all of the tie-ins together because it hadn't really coalesced. Now, like, once you get to Iron Man 2, that's a whole other story, but that movie sucks ass, so there you go. But I think people unfairly levy threats, or not threats, but hate against Incredible Hulk. I think it's a perfectly enjoyable movie. It's fun. The Hulk is a character who smashes, and that's what he does in the movie. So what the fuck more do you want?
I just don't think the Hulk works in movie form, unless he's with a bunch of people. As a
solo character, maybe not, but like Mark Ruffalo is doing amazing.
Oh, Mark! I would like to have seen a Hulk movie with Mark Ruffalo, and not. Was it Ed Norton?
It was Ed Norton. I think he was perfectly fine as the Hulk, and I would have loved to see Edward Norton interact with fucking Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and all of them. I really would have, but he got really kind of. I heard some behind the scenes claptrap about how he was like really controlling over the character, and he wanted to be kind of in creative control, and Marvel was trying to be the shepherd, like, so it just kind of didn't work out, which worked out for us because Mark Ruffalo is a fucking godsend as the Hulk. So I can't.
Mark Ruffalo is amazing.
Hulk. What's that?
Mark Ruffalo is Hulk to me now. Like when I see
he's like Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man, Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk.
And how Chris Evans will always be the Human Flame. Oh, or the Human Torch. Oh.
Ooh, man.
Oh, is that
you really fucked up? You really fucked up on that one.
Is that
the Human Torch from the Fantastic Four? Man,
yeah.
The fans are gonna roast you alive.
Because
man, I'm on fire with these puns today.
God, there's another one.
Oh, I did it again without even realizing it.
Jesus. So where do we start in this conversation? Like, do we dive into the MCU? Because that's a big dive.
It is a big dive.
Because we could go movie by movie and just go, okay, but then I feel like that would get boring.
Let's do it by phase.
Let's do it by phase.
Well, there's phase 1, phase 2, and then, phase 3, which will come to an end. Actually, Endgame, even though it's in the title, is not the end of phase 3. The next Spider-Man movie that comes out, Far From Home, is actually, Feige has gone on record as saying that is the official end of phase 3. So
because we're going to get probably the new Avengers and.
Well, all right. So let's start. I guess let's just start of the phase 1. Let's start there, That's encompassing Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, the first Thor, the first Cap, and the first Avengers. What is of those? Have you seen all of them?
Oh yeah, I've seen all
I guess.
of them. Yeah, no, that's not even a question.
Which is your favorite, least favorite, like of those movies?
Well, my least favorite is Hulk because that movie's just a steaming pile of shit.
Which one?
The Hulk. It's a steaming pile of poop. Honestly, my favorite. I love the first Avengers film. I think it's wonderful, but I also think Captain America is the best of the Origins films up until a certain point.
I think overall Cap is the best of whatever phase he inhabits. I think he's the best first phase 1. I think he's the best phase 2 movie, and I think he has the best phase 3 movie. I think his movies are like the best of...
See, I was let down with Civil War.
Civil War was not as good as Winter Soldier. Now, what I want to do at some point in the show is kind of go through a ranking of the movies.
Can we rank them by like sequel? Like, can we just put all the Iron Mans in a movie, like in a ranking, and then just like rank the tops of all of those?
So you want to do it by particular franchise? Well, I think if we're gonna, all right, so we'll do that then.
Because I feel like that would be a lot easier to rank, like because it's hard to pick a worse movie outside Hulk. So,
but the only problem with that then is there's a lot of movies in the MCU that don't have sequels.
No, those will be in the best list, like automatically. Like those, like Doctor Strange is fine. I enjoyed Doctor Strange. It's a weird movie, but it's fine.
Well, I think of the 3 Iron Man movies, my favorite is Iron Man 3.
I don't think I can argue that. I actually enjoyed Iron Man 3.
I know a lot of people dislike Iron Man 3.
It made up for Iron Man 2 is what Iron Man 3 did. And if you want to disagree with that, you can shut up.
I think Iron Man 2 is the worst film in the entirety of the MCU.
That's a bold statement.
I don't think it... I think... Whereas, we were just discussing how Incredible Hulk kind of does no real heavy lifting in terms of the overarching narrative of the MCU. I think Iron Man 2, like what made Iron Man 1 so great was that it just focused on Tony Stark and the character. Like, we always, before Iron Man, when you get comic book movies, I feel like they largely focused on the villains and the heroes were secondary to the villains. Like, for example, the OG Batman, the 89 Batman with Michael Keaton, the movie is called Batman,
but it's
Jack
Joker
Nicholson
heavy. Yeah,
was billed first as the Joker. So I feel like historically in comic book movies, people were always more interested in the villain. But at that time, was more popular.
But at that time, wasn't Jack Nicholson a bigger star than Michael Keaton?
Well, yeah, he was. But I mean, I'm just using that as kind of a frame of reference.
Well, here's something. Look at all the villains that were playing against the heroes. How big are the villains? Like with their usually the villain has the bigger star power.
And that's not the case. In fact, a lot of people would say that one of the MCU's biggest problems is its villains, that they're kind of forgettable.
Oh, Marvel's villains, like in general, I think Marvel has shitty villains.
I don't think they have shitty villains. I just think they're not. I think the MCU is more focused on its heroes and its stories, and maybe that's the way it should be. I don't know.
Because I mean, but Thanos is. I'm not the biggest fan of Thanos in general. Like I know that's the Endgame, but I get it. Like we knew that going in, even though Thanos had some sort of skin disease in between Avengers 1 and fucking the new one. But
I mean, Thanos is like one of the pillars of Marvel Comics villainy. Like he's one of the big bads. He's not the big bad, but
he's a weak big bad though. I feel like that's just kind of like.
Well, what do you mean weak? Like what makes him weak?
So comparative. Marvel villains in general, there's only one that I feel has a power big enough to be outside of DC's. Because when we look at this, like DC villains are so much bigger than Marvel villains.
That depends on who you're talking about. Like, there's only one villain, in my opinion, that rivals Thanos in terms of raw power on the DC side.
But not power. Like, just like by going, okay, that person's a villain. I just don't get excited about Thanos. Like, I'm sorry. There's just there's villains in the. I know there's villains in Marvel, but none of them just excite me the way that the DC villains do.
Okay, I think I'd like to. I think I'd like to chime in here.
Well, it's you have the first name on the show. I mean,
I think like name 5 DC villains. I'm gonna want to experiment right now. Name 5 DC villains right now off the top of your head.
5 DC villains,
just off the top of your head.
Lex Luthor.
Okay.
Cheetah.
Okay.
Riddler.
Okay.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this. They're going to be all Batman villains.
That's exactly the point. I bet you the greater number of the 5 you name are Batman villains. The first 2 aren't.
First 3
you
are.
already started with the Riddler.
Yeah, no, I said because the Riddler's my favorite villain of all time. Oh God, what was Mark Hamill's character? Like I can name Batman villains all day long, but that's because I grew up watching the '66 show.
The point I was trying to make is like the DC villains. When people think of DC villains, I would be willing to bet the farm that 7, maybe even 8 times out of 10, they're thinking of Batman villains.
Well, and the Batman villains do cross over in other things too. Like
they do, but I mean, the MCU villain. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the MCU villains. Like, even though when you like say take Doctor Doom, who's almost always associated with the Fantastic Four,
yeah,
in the same way like the Joker is, attached to Batman. I feel like the DC villains largely, while there is some crossover, I think they largely stick to their own kind of, story. Like for example, like with the Flash, the Reverse Flash, Eobard Thawne. You don't really see him tangling up with Batman or Superman very often. He's largely a Flash villain. Right. Now, there is some crossover, but he largely sticks to that universe. Whereas, like, you take Doctor Doom, while he is most commonly associated with the Fantastic Four because his origin is tied in with those characters, he has very, very, very deep ties with everybody else in the MCU. Like, it's not just a kind of crossover just to crossover. Like, it's like Doctor Doom has very like deep. I'm fumbling my point, but I just think that I think that the MCU has really, really good villains, and I don't think Thanos should be the lightning pole. I understand that he is right now because he's in the conversation in terms of being the focal point of the MCU. But I think there are so many.
Well, isn't like the most powerful villain in the entire like either both of them is Galactus, right? Because he's the Eater of Worlds.
Yeah, but I mean, if you take the gauntlet off Thanos, then yes. But if Thanos has the gauntlet, he's easily the most powerful because he can undo the universe
until he gets stopped by a girl who's also a squirrel in the Avengers movie. Just saying.
You shut your whore mouth.
I'm telling you, it's going to be a character no one's seen yet that stops Thanos.
No, I have my theory. We'll get into that later. But I have my theory.
It's gonna be Squirrel Girl.
What were we talking about? Oh, the Phase 1.
Phase 1.
Iron Man 3 is my favorite. Iron Man 2 is my least favorite of all the MCU movies, and I like Iron Man 1. I don't revisit it as much, but I love that movie, and I think the reason why I like Iron Man 3 so much is it kind of calls back to Iron Man 1. Like, Iron Man 1 was great because it had the superheroing and, like, the action that usually comes with that. But the reason why that movie is so awesome is because you get to watch Tony be Tony. Like, you get to... Like, he's great in the suit, but he's even better outside of the suit. Watching him build shit and watching him just be Tony Stark is just as rewarding and fun, if not more so, than watching him be Iron Man.
I would rather see Tony Stark being Tony Stark than Bruce Wayne being Bruce Wayne.
Agreed. Like, I love Bruce Wayne and I love Batman, but Tony Stark as just himself without the Iron Man armor is so fucking... Like, I would love to watch a sitcom of him and Bruce Banner as just Bruce Banner, like, doing science stuff. Like, that would be Disney Plus, if you're listening.
With, like, Star-Lord living with them. Like, oh my God. Just having
it'd be like the MCU version of The Odd Couple. Like, when Infinity War came out, when they announced Infinity War, and they said, like, all these characters are going to come together, the one interaction I was so excited to see was between Star-Lord and Tony Stark.
Oh, and I still wanted to see between I wanted to see between Tony Stark and Doctor Strange, because I feel like if one of them still does not utter "no shit, Sherlock," I'm going to die inside.
I think those two are. I think seeing the two of them interact was awesome because if you think about it, they are two of the most egotistical characters of the entire MCU. So watching them kind of like try to one up each other, like that line where he calls Tony Stark a douchebag, and Tony doesn't know how to handle it. Like he looks like, if you see his face in that scene, he's acting like his face does one of those like reboots. Like, did you just say that to me?
For Phase 1, I thought the Avengers movie is so damn good.
It's very good, but if you watch, like I was watching it last night, like I got to it last night in my giant rewatch, and one thing I noticed about, like, there's nothing wrong with this plot or the acting or any of the technicality on that side of it. But if you watch it, it feels like the movie it doesn't feel like a cinematic movie. It feels like almost like a high budget made for TV movie.
I disagree with that, but
there's if you look at it, like just take for example like Ultron, which was shot in like this kind of widescreen format. It looks like a very cinematic movie.
Well, okay, so who did Ultron? Was Joss Whedon still in Ultron?
Yeah, Joss Whedon was Ultron. Ultron was the movie that broke him, actually.
Yeah.
Like, Avengers is an amazing movie, and it is a landmark achievement in terms of comic book films. I think I'm a little cooled on it. It's still better than Ultron.
Look, I could shit in a bucket and it'd be better than Ultron. I still
would watch Ultron over Iron Man 2. I think that is just
awful. I just think out of the Avengers films, Ultron is so weak. Like so you can't capture that same magic that you had from that first Avengers movie. You just can't, because you're getting the team together for the first time. You're going to see them all in the same place. You're going to see, I can't think of his name now. I'm still sleepy. You see Samuel L. Jackson. I cannot think of his name.
Nick Fury?
Yeah, you see Nick Fury and you see Robin Sparkles, and you're just like, oh my god, everybody's in. Look, for anybody who does not know, I know who it is. I just am always going to call her Robin Scherbatsky. Leave me alone. And you see them in the movie, and you're just thinking, oh my god, when the team comes together that first time, it's just magical. You can't recapture that.
That scene where the camera pans around and they're standing in a circle for the first time is pure magic. But I argue Infinity War, there's something even more magical in Infinity War, because, the first Avengers does it for the first time. But now you get people like Black Panther with Captain America, you get Iron Man with Star-Lord, you get Doctor Strange and Spider-Man.
That's what I'm saying. Ultron kind of is the bastard of this group, because there's nothing that really magically happens like that in Ultron.
There's still
I guess unless you count not Black Widow, but unless you count Scarlet Witch. But
I think the thing to take away from Ultron is not necessarily the story or the plot or the characters. I think the thing that I take away from Ultron that I really like is the journey that Tony's character and Steve's character go on. Like, Ultron really is the first place where you start to get like shades of the Civil War storyline. Like, that's where the Avengers first start to splinter. That's where you start seeing chinks in the armor, so to speak. Like, Ultron is a good starting point for what's to come in terms of the overall, Infinity Gauntlet storyline. It's not a terribly well put together movie. Like, there's plot holes and there's like a ton that's wrong with it, but for what it gets right, like, I can't hold it against the movie.
No, I just don't think it's as good as the other Avengers movie.
No, it's not as good as, like, when the dust is settled. Wink, wink. I think it's going to be the lesser of the four Avengers movies for sure. But I don't think that I'd still, like, if we're going to do a definitive 22 ranking of all the movies, I think it fits squarely in the middle of the pantheon.
I'm at the bottom. I'm at the bottom on that one.
I still think, like, I still would put the first Thor behind that. I'd put Iron Man 2 way behind that. I'd even put Thor: The Dark World behind that. I'd put Guardians Volume 2 behind that.
I'd rather watch Guardians Volume 2 other than Like okay, so I don't know how I feel about Thor movies. There are days that I think they're great, and then there are days that I can't stand them.
So, like, Thor 1 is not a great movie. It's funny. It's really a comedy more than it is anything else. There's some cool scenes, like when Thor fights the Destroyer at the end, and then he comes back and has the big battle with Loki on the Rainbow Bridge. Like, there's some like cool moments, but it's largely kind of. And I hate to say it's a forgettable movie, because I know a lot of people who worked on that movie worked very hard to bring us that film. So I don't want to like diminish the work that went into making that movie, but it's really like, it's not one to revisit very often. You can watch it once in a blue moon, and then that's it. And then you get Thor: The Dark World, which is in some ways even more forgettable, but in some ways
that one's really that to me is the worst of the Thors.
I still think the first Thor is the worst of
you
the
have
three.
The Ninth Doctor trying to be a bad guy who I
think the Thor: The Dark World suffers from Iron Man 2 syndrome. My real big problem with Iron Man 2 is that they really tried cramming, like, after having 2 movies of no forward momentum in terms of the overall plot they were trying to discover, like what they were going to do with the movies going forward. I feel like they finally like decided on what they were going to do, and they crammed way too much of it. Like, whereas Iron Man 1 was this very awesome tale of this one guy, Iron Man 2 just became too overstuffed with side plots and side characters. The villain in Iron Man 2 fucking sucked. Like, the real villain of that movie is Justin Hammer. Like, the only good thing about that movie is fucking Justin Hammer.
Okay, so let's just talk about how Mickey is it Mickey Rourke?
Mickey Rourke is Whiplash, yeah.
How he got casted. Because honestly, he got that part because of The Wrestler. There's no argument there.
Go ahead.
That's a great movie, by the way. Like, I think that is Mickey Rourke's best movie. But there's no way that you watch that movie and go, he's going to play the villain in our movie. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think before, like, while they were in production, they announced, like, he was going to be the villain. Everyone was like super excited because he
because of The Wrestler.
Well, because he was like, he was going through the award season, like he was getting a lot of hype for The Wrestler, and that was like you had said, a fucking damn good movie.
If you guys want really quick, if you guys want a movie where you don't know what the ending is because you get to think about what you want the ending to be, that's the movie.
It's just a phenomenal movie from top to bottom. So when they announced Mickey Rourke as being the villain, I was super stoked. And then, like, there was like reports during the production of the film that he was supposed to play Crimson Dynamo, which is a fairly well-known Iron Man villain in the comics. What they end up with was obviously not Crimson Dynamo. I think he was criminally misused and criminally miscast. Like, and then I heard that they were trying to like only pay him like very little money to be in the movie, because most of the budget was probably going to Robert Downey Jr.'s salary. But that movie in general is problematic, and I feel really bad for Mickey Rourke because he really is a damn fine actor, and he just got wasted in Iron Man 2.
Oh, completely agree. But like that movie, that's what it sucks, because he's not in that movie much at all.
No, he's not. Like, he's in the opening credit sequence. He's in the Monaco, which even though I hate Iron Man 2, one of my all-time favorite moments in the MCU is when Whiplash attacks him at the race, and then Happy Hogan throws the suitcase armor, and Tony steps into it, and it starts building itself around him. I get chills every time I see that scene. Like, that movie is problematic to the core, but that particular scene it gives me chills. Just watching him build the suitcase armor around him, because it's very like old school. It was in the comics, it was in the cartoons, like with the suitcase armor. So it was just kind of like a neat little callback.
Right.
So I dug that a lot. But I agree with you. I think he's a fucking phenomenal actor when he wants to be, and I think he's just criminally misused. He was in that race sequence, and then he has that one exchange with Tony when they're in the jail, and he's like, I might not have. I'm paraphrasing here. I'm not going to quote it exactly because I've been, all these movies are a blur right now. But he's like, best way to if you can make a god bleed, then the sharks will come. Like he threatens Tony Stark in a way that Tony's never been threatened before. So that was a cool scene. And then you only get like 5 minutes intervals of him here and there. Then he shows up in the last like 5 minutes of the movie in like an ultra Iron Man armor suit he created with those super long whiplashes.
Yeah.
And within like 5 seconds of him showing up, he gets not dusted, but he gets his ass handed to him. So he was like, in my opinion, of every villain we've come in contact with. Oh,
he's the worst.
He's the most non-threatening, just non-entity villain they've ever had. Bar none.
Okay, so I think we're pretty... Okay, so I got to bring up one thing about Iron Man, since we're talking about this. And in Phase 1, with all of the movies that are in Phase 1, they're all... outside Iron Man 2 and the Hulk. They're all decent. But at
the end of the day, you have to start somewhere, right?
Everywhere has a beginning.
Right.
But there is one thing that needs to be discussed, and that is the casting change from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle.
From Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle?
Yeah.
I think that was genius. I think Don Cheadle's amazing as
Very rarely do you see a casting change like the only other time I can remember it is when they had to recast Dumbledore and Harry Potter, and I thought that was a much better casting.
Absolutely.
Same principle here. This is the same thing where it just worked out even better. So
I think so. I think I like Terrence Howard as an actor, and
I do too, but I don't think he would have been. I don't think he would have had as much running era as much as I don't think he would have been able to get as much longevity out of the character as Don Cheadle has.
I agree. I think they're both amazing actors, but there's just a different energy to what Don Cheadle does with the role. Like especially the way he plays the character in Iron Man 3. Like they just there's that seeing Robert Downey Jr. interact with Terrence Howard, they're both phenomenal actors, so they were doing a great job, but that's just it. It didn't feel like lived in. It just felt like two dudes acting like they were best friends. Whereas Don Cheadle comes in and it feels to me like they could be best friends off screen.
Oh, it's a much different casting. It's a much different vibe. That is probably the best part of Iron Man 2. Is you first get Don Cheadle.
I forgot about that's another one. I'd say Don Cheadle, and especially the fight when Tony gets drunk and Brodie has to don the Mark II armor and they have to fight each other. There are elements of Iron Man 2 that are good, but overall it's a steaming pile of shit.
Let's go to Phase 2. I feel like
Phase 2 contains my all-time of every MCU movie ever to come out. My all-time number one favorite comes out of Phase 2.
All right. Go through the Phase 2 movies because I've lost track of where.
Phase 2 starts with Iron Man 3. Then we go to Thor: The Dark World. Then we go to Captain America: Winter Soldier. Then we go to the first Guardians. Then we go to Age of Ultron. And then Phase 2 ends with the first Ant-Man movie.
So let's just call it what it is. Ultron and Thor are the two worst movies in this.
Yeah. I hate to say that about Thor: The Dark World because I do genuinely enjoy that movie, but I would agree with you. They're the lesser of the Phase 2 movies.
Because no one expected Guardians to be as big as it did, and then it just was like, poof.
It just, you know why? Because it was different.
Well, it was characters that no one knew. Well, I mean, they knew, I think hardcore...
Not even the hardcore Marvel elite were super, super familiar. And if someone says that they were, fuck you.
You're a jackass. No, that was a good movie. That movie surprised me into a point where I was like, okay, I thought the casting in that movie was fan-fucking-tastic.
You know what Guardians felt like to me? And this might sound controversial. Guardians felt like a Marvel version of Firefly.
I've seen a meme about that the other day where it's like, can you name a better group than us to save the universe? And then it's like, got the Firefly cast under it and going, yep, that's great. No, I feel you. I understand that because you could look at Guardians and go, this is this is a surprise.
It's just they're not superheroes. They're just a bunch of misfits who
That's what Suicide Squad should have been.
That's what they were trying. That's what they were trying to make Suicide Squad. The whole, all throughout pre-production on Suicide Squad, the big log line was this is DC's answer to Guardians, and they totally missed what made Guardians work. And it's a shame. But yeah, Guardians is great because they're not superheroes. They're a bunch of misfits who have no business being in charge of saving the universe, yet they do. And they're a family they become a family after that. And it's just just a damn good movie.
And then Ant-Man.
Not my favorite of the Phase 2, but it's damn good.
And then Ant-Man.
Ant-Man is fucking awesome.
I knew a little of Ant-Man. That's the only one that I knew more of Ant-Man going into that movie than I knew of Guardians.
Ant-Man is my number 2 or my number 3 favorite MCU movie of all time. I can fucking rewatch that movie for the rest of my life. I love it so much.
So Age of Ultron is the first movie Ashley and I saw on our first date. And it's weird that I think that's like one of the worst. But we went to see Ant-Man because that came out like a month later, if I remember correctly.
That was right around the time Marvel started cranking out 2 to 3 movies per year. Yeah.
And it was just, that's when I think that burnout feel started.
Okay.
Because Marvel cranked out like 5 movies that year.
Yeah, because you get your 2 MCUs, but then you had your X-Men's, and I think that might have been when the shitty Fantastic Four movie came out. Not that there's been a good Fantastic Four movie, but the even shittier one.
I actually think Thor came out that year. Did the third Thor movie come out that year?
So it was Avengers.
It was 2015.
The first Avengers and Iron Man 3 came out the same year. Then Thor: The Dark World and Captain America came out the same year. And then it was Guardians, and then Ultron came out the same year.
No, Guardians came out in August. I do know that. Because that was like a weird time frame on a movie coming out. And I went, why are they releasing a Marvel movie in August?
Huh. You know who... Funny story. You know who I went and saw Guardians with?
Who?
Paula.
Oh, speaking of her, she just messaged me.
Yeah, Guardians, I was right around the time we first started dating, and I didn't think she was big into MCU, but we were kind of sort of like spending a lot of time together, so I asked her if she wanted to go see this movie, and she ended up really, really, really liking it. So, a little bit of trivia.
There's a lot of good... Phase 2. I think Phase 2 is when Marvel started getting its legs, though.
Yeah, that's when the overarching story kind of started to crystallize, and they started getting more confident in their abilities to make movies, and they started taking risks, and so on and so forth. And I think I agree with you 100%. That's really where they started to
Go ahead.
The Phase 1 started it all, but Phase 2 is really where they started to get their identity.
Yeah, because I love Iron Man 3, but Winter Soldier just completely blew the lid off everything.
Winter Soldier is my all-time favorite MCU movie, and nothing that has come out since. There have been movies that have kind of sort of come close, but even so, Winter Soldier is just the best, in my opinion, the best movie they've done yet. It takes the Cap character and completely modernizes him. It takes this square-jawed, goody two-shoes character and muddies him up a little bit. And it takes him and it puts him in this world of political intrigue and espionage and everything. And this character who has largely been in service of the government is finally faced with the truth that the government is not good. And he has to kind of go and strike out on his own. And then at the end, it completely upends the status quo in terms of SHIELD, which is the government agency within the MCU. Turns out they've been invaded by Hydra this entire time. And it just completely upends everything. And it's just, the action is great, the storytelling is great, the characters are great. That movie is damn near perfect.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
And then, so we talked about Iron Man 3, we talked Winter Soldier, Thor: The Dark World. I mean, it's not the best movie, but it's still like fun.
So I can't get into that movie to save my nuts.
Guardians, everyone loves Guardians. Ultron is a good movie, but it's the lesser of the Avengers films. And Ant-Man is still like, everyone talks about Guardians being like the weird movie.
Ant-Man and Guardians were such a huge surprise in just every bit of the way.
So Phase 2, while there were some misses, I guess you could say, and I don't even want to say that, there were some missteps, is still the best. Like Phase 3 is the best of all three phases of the MCU, but there's like the Phase 2 has some stone cold classics.
So the best we're both agreeing is Captain America. Then the worst is I really don't know. I don't know if it's Thor or Avengers Ultron.
It's tough. I think I got to go with Thor.
See, I think it's
Ultron
Thor,
is not great, but
that hammer picking up scene is worth it alone.
Yeah, with Cap almost picking up Mjolnir, or Meow Meow, as it's referred to in the Thor movies. And then, I think James Spader does awesome as Ultron. I think they kind of fucked up the character, but his voice work is phenomenal. The introduction of Vision. I think there's a lot of good in Ultron. Just overall, it's kind of not a great movie.
So Phase 3 then.
Phase 3 is fucking phenomenal. It starts with Civil War, which is a hell of a place to start. We got Captain America: Civil War. Now, I might remember these ones out of order, so don't flame me in the comments, listeners. But we got Civil War, then we got Doctor Strange, and then Guardians Volume 2, then Spider-Man: Homecoming, and then there's Black Panther, then there's Infinity War, then there's Ant-Man and the Wasp, then Captain Marvel. Now we're getting Endgame this weekend, and I think the whole thing is getting capped off by Spider-Man: Far From Home. Now, I don't... Oh, and Thor: Ragnarok.
Yep.
So I think that is the entirety of the Phase 3 lineup. Let's start with Thor: Ragnarok. How awesome is that movie?
That movie surprised the shit out of me, but I'm still not like...
I think it surprised everybody.
Because the other two Thor movies are so under-fucking-whelming.
And Thor: Ragnarok comes out and is just like, it's funny, it's heartfelt, it's action-packed, it's great.
It's everything the first two aren't.
Yes. It is like Guardians Volume 2 and Thor: Ragnarok exist in the same phase, and you would have never thought that a Thor movie would have been better than a Guardians movie, but it is in every respect, I think.
It is hard for me to choose the best film out of this group. Because one, I haven't seen Captain Marvel yet, and I know that's blasphemy, but there's been a lot going on.
Of this lot, that's a tough choice. It's hard because the default answer is to pick Infinity War because it brings everybody together.
But here's the thing with Infinity War. What the shit was that?
Oh, someone's blowing off fireworks. I'm sitting on the balcony right now.
I thought someone just got shot.
Welcome to Chirac.
Oh, my God.
No, there's a firework going off.
Did the Cubs just score? Are you that close to a baseball field?
I think the closest stadium I am to is the Chicago Fire Stadium.
No, okay.
And I don't think there's a soccer game going right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past that. Okay, so Infinity War to me. I liked Infinity War, but I don't think I can thoroughly judge that movie until I see Endgame.
I think that's a general consensus.
Because that's a 5-hour film. Let's just call it what it is. That's a 5.5-hour movie.
But the directors and Feige really are pushing hard that Infinity War is a standalone movie, and it really isn't. Like, it is in the sense that it tells a complete story, but so much of what happens in Infinity War is really resting upon what's about to happen in Endgame. So as much as they want to push it being a standalone movie, it really, really, really is not.
No, because you have to see. Like, I feel like I saw someone, I think it might have been Scarlett Johansson, say that you could go in and just watch this movie. No, it was Chris Evans. You could go in and just watch this movie and you would be perfectly understanding. And I'm like, really?
You could go in and watch the movie probably and not be confused, but so much of Endgame, I'm assuming, is going to be having to deal with all of these characters and the journeys you've gone on with them, starting all the way back with the first Iron Man movie. So while you probably could watch the movie and understand it and have fun with it, the people that are going to get the most out of seeing Endgame are going to be the ones that have been around since the beginning or have at least seen all the Marvel movies up until this point.
I mean, Marvel's this. If you look at all the movies from Phase 3, they're releasing almost 4 movies a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah, we're getting to that point.
Because I mean, it's 11 films in 3 years. That's nuts. In less than 3 years, actually. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
But no, I couldn't tell you. I think Black Panther was my shocker out of this group because I didn't expect it to be that great, and it was fantastic.
Black Panther might be like I'm having a hard time. Like I know for sure, and let me go with the most controversial hot take out of Phase 3. Captain Marvel is good, but it's kind of in the middle.
I haven't seen it, and it's not because I haven't wanted to, but I know a lot of people. The problem with this is that no matter what DC or what MCU does with any female character, at this point, it's going to get compared to Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it.
They fucked up. They should have made the female movie first.
DC did get there first. Now, I mean, say what you will about which is better. I mean, I think Wonder Woman overall is a better movie, but I mean, I know that you could make the argument that the third act of Wonder Woman is kind of a giant CG mess. So, I mean, take that for what you will.
Let's see. The Wonder Woman will always be better just for the scene where she's running through the battlefield. I don't give a shit.
Yes, when she stands up and goes out in no man's land and the music starts playing and it's that slow, like that's an all-timer scene for sure.
That is probably I got chills when I first saw that scene because I was like, that is the greatest scene DC's ever done.
But there are some things in Captain Marvel that they do better than Wonder Woman. Like I think I like what they do, like Goose. Let's talk about Goose. You haven't seen the movie.
This is the cat. Yeah, I know this.
The cat is so awesome, and I don't want to spoil it for you because you haven't seen it, and for the people who haven't seen it yet. But what they do with that cat is fucking phenomenal.
I don't like the fact they release these movies so close. I don't. I think that's a shitty thing.
Yeah.
I think these movies should come out enough time to where if you didn't get a chance to see it in theater, you could at least watch it on DVD before it comes in the theater.
Well, they did this. They I mean, like when Black Panther came out and then Infinity War came out.
They did it then too. Yeah.
But Black Panther had come out on Blu-ray like a couple weeks before Infinity War came out. So there was still at least a small buffer.
Yeah, this is not the case because Captain Marvel's not going to be out for another 2 months.
Yeah, Captain Marvel's still in theaters. It's still going. I don't want to say it's going strong, but it's still pulling down money.
Yeah, because I mean, Avengers is what's going to take it out of theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And that's crazy to think about that we're still sitting here and thinking, okay, so Captain Marvel just came out less than a month ago.
Was it less than a month?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Or just a little over a month. Yeah.
I feel like that's the shortest window between Marvel releases and MCU releases yet, for sure.
Because I think that's shitty to fans who have not had a chance to see Captain Marvel.
But I think now I'm not defending it per se.
Because I know it did well, but it didn't do as good as some of the other movies.
I think the rationale behind that is like at this point in the MCU, if you're a fan, you're going to be there within the first couple weeks.
That's not true. Because if that's the case, every movie would be making the same amount as the Avengers.
No, I agree. I'm not necessarily defending their decision. I just think they're like, I feel like at this point in like Captain Marvel's been out for a month. If you're like a super hardcore fan, you will have seen it already. I'm not saying that's what I think.
Right.
I'm thinking that's what I think the studio mindset is. They're probably thinking Endgame. I guarantee you, there are going to be people who are going to see Endgame that probably haven't even seen Captain Marvel.
I'm assuming there's people who are going to see Endgame that didn't even see Infinity War.
Probably. I would not doubt it.
Because this is more than a movie. This is going to be an event.
A cultural event.
Yep.
But Captain Marvel's a very good movie, and it's just...
It's not Black Panther,
they do interesting things with the movie. I can't really discuss it very much because you haven't seen it yet. The way they tell the story, like it's not quite an origin story. Like the way they deal with Carol Danvers' origin is very interesting, and it's very kind of new in terms of the MCU origin story. And I dug that. Brie Larson fucking knocks it out of the park as Captain Marvel.
She's a perfect choice.
Awesome.
She's 100% the perfect choice.
So I mean, I just think like some of the other Phase 3 films, like I like Doctor Strange more.
I enjoyed Doctor Strange. I think if you're watching that and you get motion sickness easily, you're fucked. But
yeah, that movie is very trippy in terms of its visuals. I think the best Phase 3 film... Oh, God. I'm going to go... I'm going to go either Thor Ragnarok or Civil War. That's a tough call. Or, you know what? No, I take that back. I'm going to go either Thor Ragnarok or Black Panther.
I've got to say I think it's Black Panther. I did enjoy Spider-Man Homecoming, though.
Spider-Man Homecoming is good, but we just had so many Spider-Man movies in the last decade. That
Ladies and gentlemen, this show is now an episode of Live PD.
I do live right behind a fire department and a police department, so that shit happens on the regular over here.
That's great.
I think the reason why... All right, I'm going to double down. I'm going to pick Thor Ragnarok. And the reason why I think Thor Ragnarok is the best one of the bunch is because it's unexpected. Like, as much as you could say Guardians was unexpected because you didn't know...
But you knew what you're getting with the second one.
With Thor Ragnarok, like, everyone had written the Thor character off as, like, you know, like, his first two movies weren't great. He plays kind of a side part in both of the Avengers movies up to that point. He comes in, and Thor Ragnarok does what they should have done from the first one is they really doubled down on the comedy of the absurdity of this, like, pompous British type superhero who comes from this very British type, you know, background, and in the way he speaks and the way he kind of, you know, acts. And it's just such a reversal from the other two movies that came before it. It stands in such stark contrast to both the original Thor and Dark World that it just blew everyone's minds. And it's so fucking... It knocks the character on his ass. It builds him back up. And even though it wasn't the movie that came out right before it, Thor Ragnarok was the perfect setup to Infinity War. And that should have been the movie that came out right before Infinity War.
Yeah. They should have just switched them.
Agreed. I mean, Black Panther is awesome, and I'm not taking away from that movie. But Black Panther is a largely, like, standalone film. Like, it doesn't really... Like, it sets up stuff that they pay off in Infinity War, but it largely kind of doesn't... Like, it doesn't exist. Like, let me backtrack a little bit. It's a standalone movie. It tells its own story. It doesn't really bend to the overall mythos of the MCU. There's a couple call-outs and a couple, like, little tidbits they drop, but the overall story they're telling is very self-contained. So if you would have put that first, and then you would have had had Thor Ragnarok play right before Infinity War, I think that would have been a better call. But I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah,
I think Ragnarok. I think I got to pick Thor Ragnarok as probably my favorite of the Phase 3.
Yeah, I can't really say anything until after Endgame comes out because I know it's gonna. I don't think we're getting a happy ending. I think we're gonna get an ending.
I think we get a happy ending.
Really?
You want to talk about theories about Endgame now?
Well, I think we've talked about the good and the bad, like without having to list all the movies, because I think that was a lot easier to do than trying to list 20 movies.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about the elephant in the room. I guess let's talk about the dust in the room. And
I think all the characters that get dusted come back, obviously, because a lot of them are starting new franchises. I mean,
Spider-Man's alive. Like, that was dumb. That was fucking dumb. I'm gonna call it like I see it. That was fucking dumb to announce that.
It was. My theories. Here's some of my hot takes about what we're gonna see happen in Endgame. I think almost all the heroes that got dusted come back, but anyone who was killed pre-snap stays dead. So Loki staying dead. I think Gamora stays dead. Heimdall stays dead. So like any of the characters that got killed before Thanos did the snap, I think stay dead. And I think almost all the ones who get dusted come back.
See, I don't think Loki's dead.
I think he's dead. I think that would be a betrayal of Thor's story arc that they go on in Infinity War if he were to come back. Because we're so used to him. Like, he died in Thor the Dark World, but then he comes back because, you know, at the end of that movie, it's actually him, not Odin sitting on the throne.
So this is a fair question to ask, and I think you might be able to answer this better because I've always wondered if when Thanos snaps, can he knock himself out of existence?
I don't think he can. I think whoever does the snap.
It's a fair question to ask because it's just half the population. That's all we know about it. Like, if Thanos snapped and he dusted himself.
I don't think he has control over who he snaps. I think he just snaps and they're gone. But I think Thanos would have realized, like, this has been that character's, you know,
that's
quote,
his
unquote,
Endgame. Yeah.
So, like, he knows what he's doing. I don't think he would have done the snap if he would have snapped himself out of existence. I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not the writer of those movies, but I would imagine if Thanos would have, if he would have come to the realization that if he does the snap, if he would have thought for a second that he could have snapped himself out of existence, I don't think he would have done
it. Right.
I mean, that's just my take on that.
I love my personal favorite fan theory is the Ant-Man expands in his ass.
Yeah, oh my god! You know it's not going to happen, but just the visual of him going up Thanos' butt and then just exploding in a giant man like that. If you were to do like an R-rated HBO version of Avengers, that's
their porn movie. Speaking of which, they do that in True Blood. They actually kill him.
Really?
Yeah, one of the shapeshifters gets inside a vampire as like a bug. And then shapeshifts back into a human and just explodes the vampire in half.
I gotta see that.
It's the coolest kill in the show. Season 5.
So, who do you think, because you know some of the core cast is going to die, who do you think is going to, like, die at the end of Endgame? And not, like, get dusted and brought back, but, like, fucking die and stay dead.
I don't think we're going to see Tony Stark again. I think this is the end of Iron Man. I think this is the end of Cap.
Mm-hmm.
I know Scarlet Widow's not dying, or Black Widow's not. I know Black Widow's not dying because she's getting her own movie.
Aha! That's where I'm going to jump in. So it recently came out, and they made it a point in every publication that ran the story. The Black Widow movie is a prequel. The Black Widow movie is a prequel to everything that's happened in the MCU thus far.
That's a genius move because
they made it a point to hit on the fact
because they fucked up with Spider-Man.
So I think she dies, and like not dusted and comes back. I think she dies and stays dead.
I think Hawkeye makes it through because I know Hawkeye becomes someone else, and
I think my theory is that the movie, at some point we see him with his family in the movie and his family gets dusted and that's what sets him on his path in Endgame.
Which he could be the theoretical piece of the puzzle that no one considers.
I think the big person that's going to I think the big player in the MCU that's going to be like the genesis for saving the universe is going to be Ant-Man. Because there's so much untapped potential with the quantum realm. In terms
Which
of,
I think that's how you get. I think that's how you get everyone back. I still believe that's how. Like, he's gonna end up being the one that gets everyone back.
I think because if you remember at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp, the mid-credit stinger is he goes into the quantum realm to collect Pym particles, and while he's in there, everyone gets dusted that he's with.
Right.
So he's stuck. So the movie ends with him stuck in the quantum realm. So I don't know how he gets out, and I don't know how he reconnects. but I know that that's going to play a big part in the movie, and I think how we get the rest of the Dusted Heroes back plays largely on Ant-Man and the Quantum Realm.
I don't think the fight with Thanos plays on Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man is the one who brings, is going to be the savior of everyone.
I agree.
Because we know that Doctor Strange had that vision.
Yes. So, and he says Tony Stark in Infinity War is, the reason why he gives Thanos the Time Stone is because Tony Stark is instrumental in the one scenario out of the 14 million that he sees where the Avengers are successful. So I think Ant-Man is instrumental, but I think Tony Stark dies. I think he sacrifices himself.
It makes sense.
I don't think Cap dies. I don't think he has a happy ending per se, but I don't think Cap dies because everyone expects Captain America to die because that's how it happens in the comics. And Cap has had, other than Thor, has had some of the most tragedy to deal with thus far. So I think everyone expects Cap to die and Iron Man to survive. So I think they'll throw a curveball at us and they'll kill off Iron Man and Cap will survive. But I don't think it'll be a typical ending. Like maybe Cap gets stuck in the past or something. Like maybe while they're time traveling, they have to go back and I don't know how they work. I still don't know the ins and outs of how they work that, which I think has been a huge success on the Russos and Feige, keeping the story of Endgame largely under wraps, even only a few days out from release. So, I don't want to go into major story beat spoilers or not spoilers, but theories, because I ultimately don't know how that's going to happen. But I think everyone expects Tony to survive and Cap to die.
See, I think they both die, and I think Bucky becomes Cap.
I wouldn't doubt it if they make Falcon Cap, because in the comics, Falcon is Captain America right now.
I think it'll be Bucky. I think they're.
I'd like to see Bucky because that's his buddy. I don't know that I could go either way on. I don't want to come definitively down one way or the other.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough one. I think Scarlet Witch and the Vision make it through. I don't see that.
I don't know. I see Scarlet Witch coming back, but Vision died pre-snap.
Oh, that's true.
Thanos used the Time Stone to bring him back and rip the fucking
Okay, so is the
soul.
time? Okay, here's the thing: is the Time Stone possibly going to be used again? Because it's we're gonna. Because I swear to God, if we go to that trope, and this is something that has irked me going into this, if we go to the trope where they rewind time, I'm fucking gonna be pissed.
I think the Time Stone plays a factor, but I don't think that's what brings the heroes back. I think the Soul Stone is what's going to play the big part. Of the 6 stones, I think the Soul Stone is going to be the one that really focuses.
You know where I'm coming from, right? You know where I'm coming from, where it's
the time travel trope. It's a trope, and I know that that's probably where we're going in this movie.
Because if this movie becomes super predictable super fast, this is going to be a letdown.
I don't think this movie is going to be predictable. I think there's going to be some things that happen that are.
Every movie has some predictability, but
there is still a variable degree of predictability. But I think this movie, there's going to be a lot that happens that we don't see coming. I think that's kind of the genius of keeping so much of it secret. There's going to be a lot of surprises. I think there are some of the fan theories out there might hit it on the head.
Except for Ant-Man crawling up Thanos' butt.
That's not as awesome as that would be. That's certainly not.
And if that happens, my God, the internet will explode.
But I really think Tony dies. I think Cap makes it out. I think Black Widow gets got. I don't know how she gets got. I couldn't even theorize, but I just.
Do we see a second bad guy in this? Do you think Thanos is the final bad guy, or do we see someone else?
No, I think Thanos is the final bad guy. I don't think there's. This is the culmination of everything up until this point. I think you'd be kind of dumb to introduce a new villain. Because you figure this movie's going to be 3 hours long.
That's what I'm saying. It's 3 hours long. And if you get into the movie and they've already done the Thanos bit where they've got everyone back, and like you're doing that within like 45 minutes because I assume we're gonna get a fast I assume something big's gonna happen within the first hour. Like I mean, super big. Like
I think the first hour of the movie deals with the fallout, or not maybe the first hour, but I feel like the first chunk of the movie is going to be them kind of like we're going to pick up and they're living in this world where everyone's been killed, and we're picking up with them having to deal with this world where half of all life has been killed. So I think like I don't think the movie starts off on an action beat. I think we start off in this very somber place where the heroes are reeling from the loss of Infinity War. I think the movie, I think the very first scene we get is going to be Tony in space. If I had to guess.
Yeah.
What else was I going to say? I think I think that's where we're going to start. Either that, or I bet you we start with Hawkeye.
Or just a phase.
I don't know. I'm not. There's just something to me that says there might be another bad guy.
I don't think. I think especially with the time travel fuckery we're going to be dealing with, I just don't think there's going to be like maybe we see past villains. Like that's a possibility. Like maybe we see past villains. Like maybe Loki isn't still alive in the form that we know him, but maybe he comes back because of the time travel they have to do. Maybe we deal with other villains throughout the MCU. Like that could be a way to do it, to introduce villains we've already seen, because without actually knowing they're going to be time traveling.
Oh yeah, no. The Stones are going to play a very pivotal role in everything that happens.
Maybe that's it, but I don't think we get a new villain. I don't think we get any new villains until.
I hope not. I really hope not. It just makes me nervous because you know how sometimes the superhero movie relies on a second villain sometimes. And
Say that again?
Being that, well, some of the superhero movies rely on a second villain sometimes, and this is a 3-hour movie. Like this is not your normal, like even 2 hours and something. I'd be like, okay, it's probably just Thanos, but an extra 40 minutes. Oh my God.
Yeah, but the last couple of MCU movies have largely stuck to one villain.
Right.
So
it's going to be an interesting. I just want the movie to be good. I'm scared it might be a letdown. I'm scared we're getting ourselves all hyped up too.
I don't think so. I'm hyped, and I don't think I can get any more hyped.
We'll probably do an episode on the movie next week, like we did with Star Wars. And if we do that, we will put the spoilers in the title. We will give a spoiler warning in titles, like for live. I feel like that's something we'll have to do. But I don't know.
I think this movie ultimately is going to be fucking epic. I think there's going to be a ton of surprises. I think it's going to be hugely emotional. Whether it's Tony or Steve or Black Widow or Hulk or whoever dies and lives, I think it's going to be hugely emotional because this is the culmination of everything that Marvel has been working towards since 2008. Like 22 movies in half as many years is insane to think about.
You know who we haven't talked about?
What?
Nebula.
Now, let's talk about that for a second. It's good that you brought that up because in the comics, Nebula, in terms of the Infinity War storyline, plays a huge part. Huge part. In fact,
doesn't she get the Infinity Gauntlet?
She's the one that wields the gauntlet and fixes everything. Maybe not fix. I might be remembering that story wrong, but she does wield the gauntlet, and she does exact her quote unquote revenge on Thanos. I don't remember the story verbatim, so I might be quoting that wrong. So forgive me. But she plays a massive role in the comic. I don't think she plays as massive a role in the movie
that we know of. Like, I mean, she could be. Okay, so one, we don't know who's going to be the official, going to be the savior of this group. We just don't. You know, it's going to be someone.
I think this. If you're going to kill Tony. If we're gonna go with let's go with my theory and say they kill Tony, I think he ends up being the savior. Because if he was the start of it all. He was the very first one. So it would be kind of poetic for him to be the ultimate sacrifice. Like his is what if he's the one that has to wield the gauntlet and he's the one that brings everybody back? And in doing so, the power is so great, he ends up getting not dusted, but he ends up dying. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the way it's going to play out. I think it's got to be one of the core Avengers, because they made it a point at the end of Infinity War to point out that it was the original 6 Avengers plus a few new ones that survived. All the new characters are the ones that got dusted ultimately. Is the original 6 that ended up surviving. So it has to be one of those core characters that ends up saving the day.
Does it?
It has to be. It's if they're touting this movie as the culmination of everything that comes before it, they have to pay homage to what started it. And Iron Man started it. So what would be more poetic than the man who started it all to finish it all?
Or having the underdog character do it that you just don't expect, because that's a trope. And
it is a trope, but I really honestly believe in my heart that they're going to pay it off with someone who was there from the beginning. Whether it was Thor or Iron Man or Cap or Hulk even, I think it ends with the way it started. There's no way they end it with Captain Marvel saving the day.
I think she's going to play a pivotal role. No, she's going to be... Like, I think with the fight with Thanos, she's the person that you will need to watch out for. Like, I think
she trades the best punches with Thanos, but in terms of making the sacrifice play that ends up saving the day, I don't think it's her. I don't think it's going to be any of the Guardians.
I could see I could honestly see Nebula getting the gauntlet and fixing everything. Because you just know they've kept, like, I just know she's going to play a huge role in this. Like, you just have to know that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, with what happened to Gamora, you just have to have that feeling.
I mean, I'll give that as an outsider's chance. I really don't see that happening, but I mean, if they're going to really try and surprise us with this movie, that would be a way to do it. I'll give you that.
Because Hawkeye would also fall on that list too, but he's going to...
I don't think Hawkeye's a good human character, but he's way too underpowered to have any sort of impact. I think maybe he inspires someone to make the sacrifice play, but I don't think he actually makes the sacrifice. Because let's be honest, this movie is going to end with someone sacrificing their life to save the day. And I know I've been hitting on it, but I really got to believe it's one of the core original group, because they keep touting this as like the end of an era. You don't make this an end of an era by having Star-Lord be the one that saves the day. You don't.
Well, that would make up for the bullshit that everyone went through, because that poor guy took some hell.
Yeah, he did.
Oh God.
Oh man, I honestly, truly think it's going to end up being one of the core Avengers, and like, to boil it down even further, it's going to be Cap, Thor, or Iron Man that ultimately makes the sacrifice play. And I don't even think it's going to be Thor. I think because Cap. Like, Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. have gone on record, their contracts are up. And Hemsworth's contract is up too. But I think with the recent resurgence in popularity of his character, I think he's still got another movie or two in him. I truly think we get another Thor movie. Or maybe we even get a Thor Guardians crossover.
We'll find out.
But I really think, to kind of put a capper on all the speculation, I think it's going to be, at the end of the day, it's going to be Cap or Iron Man. And if I want to put money down, like if I had to come down on a final pick, I think Iron Man makes a sacrifice play and he goes out guns blazing.
We'll find out.
But
we will find out.
That sounds like a pretty logical endpoint to go out on.
Yeah, it does. I feel like this is going to be... I do think it's a cultural event. I think this is the first movie ever, with the exception of Star Wars returning.
I think this is the biggest nerd cultural movie to come since Force Awakens.
I think this is the biggest one since The Phantom Menace.
I don't know, man. The Force Awakens was huge in terms of the nostalgia.
Yeah, but there wasn't as much time frame between the two.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, you make a good point. I can't argue that.
I know it didn't make as much money, but it's more about, like, did you see that in theaters? And if you didn't, you're going to be thoroughly disappointed with yourself.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I mean, that's I think that's a good place to end the show. This movie comes out, like, the first screenings for the public go live on Thursday, tomorrow. And then it gets its super duper wide release on Friday. I've got tickets to go see it Saturday morning.
It's going to be the number one film for the next 3 weeks. At least.
I think this movie is going to break all the box office records. I know some people are pegging it to make like $300 million. I don't think it gets that far. I think it's damn close.
Do you know that the ticket sales already are close to $1 billion?
I know that it debuted in China already, and it's already raked over 100 million in China. I know that in the pre-sales alone, it's made at least close to 160 million.
I've seen $1 billion.
I wouldn't doubt it.
There is a rumor that is a prediction for $1 billion on opening weekend.
That's a tall order. I hope that'd be cool. Like, I'd be absolutely ecstatic if that was the case.
And that's why it's a cultural event. I mean, it's going to be the closest it gets to it, probably until Star Wars. I mean,
yeah, I like Star Wars is going to be huge. I still think that this will be bigger.
I am going to say something terrible. I don't think you see another superhero movie garner as much attention after this.
No, until we get to Secret Wars, I don't think a superhero movie coming out will get as much attention as Endgame.
I don't even think Secret Wars will do as well as this.
Well, if the MCU throttles back and focuses on singular stories from this point forward for a while,
which would be nice. Good God. And knock it down to 2 movies a year. Fuck.
Yeah, I think after Endgame, I think the logical play is to go back to doing singular stories. Because, other than Secret Wars, what other big team, like you could do Secret Wars, you could do there's Avengers versus X-Men.
I swear to God.
To happen, they have to build up, the MCU has to build up their version of the X-Men, which is still a long way.
They also have to rebuild the Avengers because the original Avengers were in the X-Men versus the Avengers.
That's true. So, I mean, I think right after Endgame, I think this is like as big as it gets for a while. I think the smart play would be to just go back to sticking to singular stories. Like get like Spider-Man 2 is just going to be its own story, I think, for the most part.
Until Spider-Man until Peter Parker meets Squirrel Girl.
Because you figure there's going to be a Black Panther sequel.
Yeah, there's going to be a Doctor Strange sequel, yeah.
They've confirmed Doctor Strange sequel. They got, Spider-Man's coming out later this year. I think we're going to get a lot of standalone sequels. I don't think we get another big crossover event like this for a long time. And I think that's smart because they have to realize it's not going to get bigger than this for a long time.
Well, they also know you can't do this constantly either. Because eventually the audience gets tired.
Yeah, like if you keep doing big events like this, if there hasn't been a fatigue, there definitely will.
This will be the movie that causes the fatigue because the second Spider-Man movie will not do well. As well,
I don't think. No. Spider-Man's a household name.
No, but it will not do as well because this is the fatigue movie. This is the movie that's going to cause people to go, I don't have to go see another one for a while. I'm going to call that. It's going to do fine. It's going to make its money back and a bunch more. But you get what I'm saying. Like this is the movie that just goes, I don't have to go see a Marvel movie anymore, like for a little bit. Because there's no story.
Yeah, I like this is the capper. Like this is, I think the MCU starts to, I don't want to say falter because they haven't faltered yet, and there's no reason for us to think they're going to falter. But I think like this is going to be the movie that makes all the money and gets all the attention, and then we're going to get back to smaller stories, smaller scale movies.
I mean, those movies will do well.
Insulated stories. What's up?
Those movies will do well. It's just going to be.
They will. And Spider-Man, I think, will do well. It won't obviously make Avengers Endgame money, but it may not even make
as much as the first one did. But
I think it does because Spider-Man is one of the most popular Marvel characters, period.
But it also comes out 2.5 months after this one.
But that's still 2.5 months.
But remember, like, there has to be some balance of just time frame, right? Like, you have to let us breathe. Like, you can't just, like, this
Well, they did, like, take Ant-Man and the Wasp, for example. Like, Ant-Man and the Wasp came, like, 2 months after Infinity War. And while Ant-Man and the Wasp didn't make all the money, it was still
it's a success.
And it was a good palate cleanser because you had Infinity War, which was this large, epic, balls-to-the-wall movie. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp came out, and it was this really small, singular, insulated film.
Right.
So I think that's what they're angling with Spider-Man, where Endgame is going to be this huge, monstrous, epic movie like we've never seen. And then you're going to get Spider-Man, which is just going to be a good Spider-Man story.
But my problem is that's now the third movie in 6 months.
Yeah, and then what you do is you get after Spider-Man Far From Home, we don't get another one for a long time.
Because you have to, like, I'm telling you, that fatigue is going to hit harder after Endgame comes out. That fatigue from fans, and I know it's one of those things. But eventually, the fatigue is because you've got DC still releasing movies. You've got, like, not as frequently, but you have DC movies coming out. You've got all these Marvel movies coming out. Eventually, the bubble's going to burst on superhero films.
And that's why I think once Spider-Man Far From Home comes and goes, I think we don't get another MCU movie until 2020.
Which would be great. Like, you just need to, like, let's hit the palette.
Because you figure it's 2019. We're going to get Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Spider-Man all in the same year. That's like bang, bang, boom. And that's 3 big movies. And like you said, the bubble could very well burst when Spider-Man Far From Home comes out. But then I think they must realize that on some level.
Jesus.
Because they haven't concrete. They're not filming anything else right now. They haven't even concrete made any announcements. Like, we know that Doctor Strange is going to happen. We know Black Panther is going to happen. Part 2. We know that Captain Marvel is going to get a sequel. We know these movies are going to get sequels, but they have not made any concrete Phase 4 announcements yet. So we don't even know we're getting anything in 2020. So we might not even get anything in 2020. We could get a whole year off.
I'm actually looking up to see what comes out this year. Okay, so Endgame, Dark Phoenix is still to come out. Far From Home. New Mutants.
New Mutants is not even a blip on. Like, that's going to be a good movie, but that's not even a blip on the radar.
The Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix.
That looks fucking bizarre. That looks like the anti-superhero movie.
We just had Hellboy.
The less said about the better.
And Shazam. Like, just already, in the span of, like, what? We're in the 4th month. In the span of 4 months, we've had Shazam, Hellboy, Captain Marvel, and Endgame.
Yeah, but those, like, Hellboy and Shazam are lower tier movies, and Captain Marvel's a mid tier, and Endgame is, like, super high tier.
Well, Shazam did a lot better than I think anyone expected it to as well.
I think so, too. I still got it. That's one I'm still sleeping on. Like, I really, really badly want to go see that movie.
It's supposed to get a sequel now, but that's what I'm saying. In 4 months, we've had 4 movies. We're getting one in June, and we're getting one in July.
Yeah, I think I agree that the bubble could possibly burst after Endgame.
Not to mention all the TV series, and then Disney Plus is launching.
Yeah, there's going to be all those Disney series that are going to be launching on Disney Plus, like there's the Loki show, there's the Scarlet Witch and Vision show. They just announced the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. So I mean,
are these all talk shows? How does?
What's that?
Are these all talk shows?
Well, like the Disney Plus limited series, or whatever you want to call them.
I have to once. It's going to be interesting to see because I feel like Endgame's going to be part of that.
What do you mean?
That's going to be on launch title.
Well, yeah, they announced, they kind of did a little blurb a couple days ago about all the stuff that's going to be available at launch, and I was kind of looking at it, and I was reading over it, and unless they miss some, not all the MCU movies are going to be available at launch, which was weird, unless they just mislisted it. But Endgame is one of the movies that's going to be available at launch on Disney Plus.
Oh no, they'll have them all on there at launch. I mean, they're doing their entire movie which just the fact that every cartoon they've ever done is going to be on there. I know that has nothing to do with this, but just holy crap.
So I mean, like, there's going to be no shortage of superhero content in terms of what the MCU is bringing us, but I think the movie
it might be time to relax a little. It's kind of like to do what Star Wars is going to do after this movie comes out. Take a break. Give us a little time.
I think we get at least half a year.
I would like longer, but that's just me.
Well, like Spider-Man comes out in what, 2 months?
July, yeah.
July. So Spider-Man is going to be out in like 2 or 3 months or whatever. And then that's it for the MCU for the rest of the year. So we don't get anything else from them. I don't even think we get anything from them until late 2020, if even that, because they haven't officially like announced start dates on anything yet. Like, we know Guardians 3 is coming because we know James Gunn is back to write and direct that. We know Doctor Strange was announced. We know that Spider-Man obviously is coming. We know that Black Panther is getting a sequel. We know that, like, we know these movies are getting sequels. They just haven't formally announced release dates for anything but Spider-Man.
And apparently
there's out in 2 months.
Yeah, there's the Eternals. I don't know what that is, but
yeah, that's honestly, to discuss the Eternals at this point in the show would take another hour.
No, but Angelina Jolie's been cast in that.
Really?
Yep.
I haven't even heard that. That's cool. So I really do think we get a breather. I think the breather. I think they were smart to break up the movies the way they did. Give us Infinity War. Give us the 2 smaller movies in terms of Captain Marvel and then Ant-Man as the kind of palate cleansers, and then we get Endgame, which is the end-all be-all. And then I think Spider-Man comes because that would be a good palate cleanser for Endgame, and then that's it. We're done after
Apparently, Phase 4 is supposed to start in 2020, but there's only going to be 5 films over 4 years. So that's not as bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think things definitely slow down. I think Marvel's very aware of the bubble, whether it's coming or not. And I think we do get a slowdown after Spider-Man Far From Home.
Like I said, you can only do this for so long. Like, as much as I love, this is such a huge movie. This would be like the NFL season starting up right after the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be, like, even TV shows break for the summer.
That'd be like Royal Rumble happening and then a month later WrestleMania.
That technically does happen.
Yeah, that's true.
But I mean, it would be like the Royal Rumble happening and then the next day is WrestleMania.
Yeah. Well, isn't there a pay-per-view in between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania?
There's always pay-per-views in between. Like, I remember, like, but see, even just spacing it out makes it feel a little bit more special. Mm-hmm. It's kind of becoming that we're gonna hit you with a comic book movie every month.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that they're popular, but again, eventually the bubble will burst.
And I really truly believe they are self-aware enough to know that maybe that's the reason why we haven't gotten any super like hardcore release date announcements on Phase 4, because they want people, like, this movie is going to be big. It's going to be sprawling. It's going to be epic. There's going to be so much going on. They're going to want it to sit with people for a while. You know, like, Spider-Man's coming out, but that's going to be
I still don't understand how Spider-Man's coming out after this. Like, I think this should have been like, this is it. This is the end of Phase 3. Like, this should have been the movie that ended Phase 3.
Well, unless they do something in Endgame that changes the status quo and Spider-Man is like the punctuation mark on the end of the sentence. I mean, I don't know why he said it that way. I mean, he must have a reason. I mean, in Feige we trust. He's been doing right by us thus far, so I have no reason to not trust he knows what he's doing.
Who's the, like, even the bad guys in the new Spider-Man movie have, like, me going, eh.
I don't know. Mysterio seems pretty badass.
Well, I know that. I think we saw the first trailer for that during the Super Bowl. I mean,
Yeah. I think Spider-Man, maybe it's just the palate cleanser. Maybe just they want to give us one smaller movie to kind of, you know, like Endgame is going to be this huge rush of everything, and it's going to be super emotional, and maybe they just want to give us one movie that's just fun and is just a good Spider-Man story and is separate from everything else that happened, and then that's it for a while. Because maybe they realize, like, hey, we're not going to give them anything for a while after this, so let's give them Spider-Man. That's something that we know people are going to like, as sort of, like I said, a palate cleanser to kind of wash the epicness and the emotionality of Endgame out of our mouths and try, kind of just get back to having fun again. And then we give them a break for a while.
Yeah, because, I mean, after, like I said, that I know with Endgame being as big as it is, I know that I'm gonna need a break after that. Like that's kind of like watching episode 7 of Star Wars and seeing Han Solo die. By this point, if you haven't seen episode 7, fuck you. But like seeing Han Solo die and going, oh my god, I now have to wait. Like, and then they hit us with the fucking I can't think of the name of the movie, but they hit us with Rogue One, and I'm just like, no, I no. And it's kind of the same thing. Like even with you don't even get to sit and process things for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's part of the advantage of not doing a movie so fast after each other.
Though at least Star Wars only gave us one movie a year.
That's true.
I mean, even though Solo came out like 6 months after,
it was still one a year.
It was still like 1 year, even though it wasn't like a full 365 days. And like you had, Last Jedi came out at the end of that year, and Solo came out in the next year. So there's still at least technically one movie a year. Like back in the early days of the MCU, I could have told you like I would love to see 3 or 4 Marvel movies a year. And I still hold true to that. Like, I'm still a super fan. I'm still going to be ass and seat to everyone.
Oh, so am I. But it's just kind of like, with I guess the exception of Captain Marvel, but not because of I'm not wanting to. But yeah, no.
I think you're right. I think the bubble's coming. I think they're aware of it, and I think that's why I think Endgame and then Spider-Man, and that's it for a while.
It's kind of like the one reason you stop seeing zombie everything, because eventually, like, people got zombied out.
See, I'm always like, to kind of dovetail, I'm always about zombies. I can never get
but it's cyclical.
tired of zombies.
Like everything becomes cyclical. I at this point I would love to see a comedy. Like just something completely different that's just not a sequel or a comic book movie. Like I want to see movies that are just, I don't know, I just want to see different things now.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess we should probably end the show here. Is there anything else you want to add before we
enjoy the movie? Enjoy the movie, and if you spoil the movie, you're an asswipe.
Yeah. If you dare spoil the movie for anybody, I sincerely hope Ant-Man comes out and explodes out of your asshole.
That's actually a perfect way to. Yeah. No, I'm accepting of this.
So, all right, well, that's going to do it for the Brodie and Richard Show. This has been our MCU edition.
Do we have a topic for our next episode?
I haven't really thought about it, to be honest with you. I'm thinking for the next episode we talk about like streaming TV shows. Like shows that are exclusive to like Hulu and Netflix and things of that nature, because like I think the argument can be made that like there's a lot of good shows that are streaming that are even better than shows that are on regular TV.
I could probably, I agree with you. There's also a lot of shows that are in those streaming platforms that are god awful and should not even have been made.
Well, I think that'd be like a good topic for us, like binging TV shows. I think would be a good topic for us to hit on.
Can I make a shot? Can I take a shot at somebody? Hemlock Grove, you fucking suck. All right.
You suck. So that's going to do it for us here at the Brodie and Richard Show. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go enjoy Endgame. Don't spoil the movie. Let us know what you think. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. And as always, please, 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 please keep the buttfuckery to a minimum.